Hey there. Welcome to CyberPulse by Quantum Shield, the podcast where we make cybersecurity less intimidating and a lot more exciting. Every episode, we're diving into the latest digital drama, from sneaky hackers to the coolest defense strategies, all while sharing tips you can actually use. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's navigate this crazy digital world together.
All right, everybody, welcome in. Today, we are diving deep into the world of GRC.
That's right. Governance, risk management, and compliance. We're gonna unpack that for you today.
We are going to figure out how GRC is not just another one of those, like alphabet soup acronyms.
Right.
That it can actually be like the backbone of a really good cybersecurity strategy.
It's essential, really. I mean, think of GRC as kind of like the blueprint, for building a security system that's not just about, reacting to every little thing, but it's about looking ahead, anticipating what might come.
Right, like you don't want to just put up a fence after somebody's already hopped it.
Exactly.
You want to be ready. Okay.
And it's got to be a system that can grow and change along with your business.
Yeah. Adapt. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. So we've got a ton of materials actually on GRC. We've been digging through everything.
Oh, yeah.
Articles, white papers, all that good stuff. And one of the things that we saw kind of consistently was this definition of GRC.
Yeah.
As this integration of governance, risk management, and compliance. Like all three of those things have to be working together.
They really do. It's not enough to just focus on one and ignore the others. They're all intertwined.
Yeah, it's not just checking a box. Oh, okay, we did governance. We're good.
Okay.
So let's start breaking this down.
Okay.
Let's talk governance. When we say governance, what are we talking about here?
So governance is all about, who's steering the ship, who's making those big picture decisions.
Right, like who's setting the course?
Yeah.
What is the direction of the ship?
Exactly. What are our goals? What are our priorities? How much risk are we willing to tolerate?
Yeah, and we saw in a lot of the stuff that we were reading that there's this kind of a shift happening right now in how people are thinking about governance.
Yeah.
Where it's less about, one person at the top calling all the shots.
Right.
And more about distributing that responsibility.
Absolutely. Giving different teams, different departments, the knowledge and the power to make decisions that affect their area.
So it's more, that sounds like it's got to be more effective in a way.
It can be, yeah. Because it means you've got people who are closest to the actual work making decisions about security.
Okay. And then we even saw some stuff about how AI is starting to play a role in governance.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the future right there.
Yeah. Real-time risk assessment, all of that.
It's incredible.
Okay. So we've kind of set the direction with governance, right? We're figuring out like who's who in the zoo.
Yeah.
But then we got to figure out, okay, what are we actually worried about here? And that's where risk management comes in.
Exactly. Risk management is all about identifying those icebergs. What could go wrong and how likely is it?
So, for instance, I saw an example in one of these articles where they were talking about a company that was relying on like really outdated software.
Ooh, yeah. Big risk?
Yeah. And they had not updated their systems in years.
Yeah.
And so, risk management in that situation is about saying, okay, how likely is it that this software is, full of vulnerabilities?
Right. And if somebody exploits those vulnerabilities, how bad could it be?
So you have to assess the likelihood that something bad is going to happen. And then the impact.
Exactly. And then you can start to prioritize,
Okay, so this is really interesting. We've got governance, we've got risk management, but then there's this whole other side, which is compliance.
Right. And then this is the one where, it can feel a little bit more, rigid maybe?
Yeah.
Because it's about rules.
It's
about regulations.
Like, these are the things you have to do.
Exactly. Whether it's NIST, CSF, ISO 27001, you've got to know what applies to you.
Because if you don't do those things, you could face penalties, right?
Exactly. You could be in big trouble. And it's not just about avoiding penalties. It's about, best practices.
Right, because these frameworks, they're designed, in theory, to help organizations be more secure. But you made a good point earlier. They're not one size fits all.
They're not, no. What works for a huge multinational corporation might not be right for a small startup.
So how do you figure out what the right approach is?
Well, it goes back to your risk profile,
Okay.
What are your specific risks? What are the threats that you're most worried about?
And the industry that you're in probably plays a role too.
Absolutely.
Like if you're dealing with healthcare data, it's going to be different than,
Absolutely. Financial data. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we've talked about these three things separately, but I think it's really important to emphasize, again, this idea that GRC, it's not just about doing these three things.
No, it's about how they work together.
It's the integration.
It's like a machine,
It is.
All the parts have to work together.
And we actually found, I found a really kind of a scary example, actually, in one of these articles.
Ooh.
Of what can happen when GRC goes wrong.
Oh, yeah. Lay it on me.
So this company, they had gone through a merger, right? And so they brought on all of this new infrastructure, all these new systems, expanded their network.
Okay.
But they didn't update their security practices at all.
Oh, no.
They just kind of kept doing things the way they'd always done them. And they got hit with a major data breach.
Oof. Yeah, that's a classic example of what can happen when you don't have that integrated approach.
Because their governance failed, right?
Right. They didn't reassess their security posture.
After the merger.
After the merger, yeah. Their risk management failed.
Yeah.
Because they didn't take into account all of these new vulnerabilities.
This bigger, more complex system.
Exactly.
And then their compliance probably wasn't up to snuff either.
No, because they were probably still operating under these old assumptions.
So it just goes to show, like, this is not just some theoretical.
No.
It can have real-world consequences.
Real-world, serious consequences.
So that kind of leads us to, I think, one of the most important takeaways from all of this research is that GRC has to be an ongoing process.
It's not a one and done.
It is not. It's not set it and forget it. It has to be something that you are constantly reevaluating.
Absolutely. Just like a ship at sea, it needs those constant course corrections.
You can't just set the rudder and then go take a nap.
No,
You got to be paying attention all the time.
Exactly.
And so that makes me think about this idea of building a culture of GRC.
Yes.
Where it's not just, the security team's responsibility, but it's everybody's responsibility.
It's got to be part of the DNA.
It does. How do you do that, though? How do you actually create that?
Well, it starts with education, making sure that everyone understands what GRC is, why it matters.
And that they have a role to play.
Exactly.
I also think it's about empowering people to speak up.
Yes.
If they see something.
100%.
Like if they get that phishing email, they need to feel comfortable forwarding it to the IT team.
And not be afraid to ask questions, if they're not sure about something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's about building that awareness, that shared responsibility.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about governance, risk management, compliance. We've talked about how they all fit together.
Yes.
We've talked about what can happen when it goes wrong.
Right.
And we've even touched on how to build a culture of security.
Absolutely.
So to kind of wrap things up here, I think the big takeaway for me is that GRC is not just a checkbox. It's not just a one-time thing. It is an ongoing process. It is something that has to be ingrained in the way that your organization operates.
It's an investment in the future of your business.
It's an investment in the future of your business.
I like that.
So as you're going back to your desks, you're thinking about your own organizations, think about this.
Yeah.
How can you move beyond just checking boxes, right?
Yes.
How can you cultivate a culture of GRC where security is woven into the very fabric of what you do?
Make it everybody's responsibility.
I like that. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for hanging out with us on CyberPulse. Remember, cybersecurity doesn't have to be scary. It's all about staying sharp and a little bit savvy. Keep learning, stay curious, and don't let those cyber gremlins get you down. Catch you next time, and until then, stay safe, stay smart, and keep crushing it online.